Hey guys, welcome to Nerdarchy, for nerds, by nerds. I'm Ted, hanging out with the colleagues here.
Dave, Ryan,
Nate.
And today we're going to bring you a terrible terrain, as we call it, Kredgefur's belt. So, what do you guys think? What is Kredgefur's belt?
it's a belt. It's made of fur. There you go. It's very stylish. Very
From the Kredge region.
from the Credular region. You can be incredulous about this. But.
So Kredgefur is like our god of the hunt and wildness and kind of like frontier lands and wilderness.
A little like lycanthropy thrown in there.
Just for fun.
Just for fun.
Just a smidge. So, but Kredgefur's belt is actually a very brutal Arctic terrain in the north of Chimes of Discordia.
Yeah. Okay. And so this came by way of a request, right? Do you remember who the requester was on that one?
Someone asked us. No, someone just generally asked to do more of the terrible terrains.
But just had an idea of.
And they said they had swamp and Arctic coming up, I think.
Yeah.
Right. And I don't remember specifically who.
All right. So the Kredgefur's belt, we're going to have all your typical, winter issues where you're going to have, your storm giants and your yetis and polar bears.
Oh my!
if you want to say oh my. But what makes Kredgefur's belt unique and interesting?
Right. So we have Arctic gnomes. Stay with me here. Arctic gnomes that there were lava flows beneath. Like there's a subterranean volcano that erupted. So these 3 columns of pillar rock gust up through the ground. But what happened is the air was so cold that as it went up, it didn't come down. It just froze as these 3 columns of pillar rock.
Okay.
And these industrious gnomes went through and excavated a whole community inside of it. So they harness geothermal energy. They're very your standard like tinkery gnomes that built this fortress. Are you dying over there?
I am dying.
He's dying on camera. But so they create this fortress in the middle of the Arctic. So that's one of the things that's going on in the region.
All right. So we'd also talked about some halflings and how they're making their own unique culture here. What some races?
I think really what we have is a dynamic of three different
factions in the region.
Yeah, and none of them get along with each other.
Well, because they're all vying for the same resources.
Right.
So
it's a little bit deeper than that. You mentioned our halflings, which are a little bit based off the Furchins from 2nd edition D&D, which were kind of like they're like halfling dwarf childs things,
and with like a Eskimo influence.
Yes,
So the Inuit kind of.
So like we kind of have this idea that with every generation there's a great hunt, and they pick a beast. You might be from the year of the Yeti, and that was whatever mystic method they had for choosing the spirit animal that they would hunt.
So we're not sure if they're like doing some sort of augury with like casting bones, or they go into a sweat lodge.
I like the sweat lodge.
Yeah, sweat lodge and having a vision.
Along with them all partaking of the blue tears.
Yeah, I was going to say, I like that concept.
Which is like our Arctic version of peyote. So maybe it's some.
Which
we need to
crystallize sap from the ghost pines.
Oh yeah, that could be
ghost pines.
Yeah,
dude, don't you know about ghost? Everybody knows about ghost pines.
Yeah, remember? I think we were gonna do a winterized theme thing, and there was ghost pine forest. That's what I remember.
Okay, this is news to me, but
no, I have never heard of it either. But it's funnier that way.
Yeah. All right, so they harvest this Arctic drug from some sort of creature or other resource,
and then sit in a sweat lodge until they have a vision of a creature to hunt.
Right.
And let me tell you, the Arctic quail hunt. Those guys, they get no respect.
No, none at all. So
yeah, you're from that generation. They just shake their head.
So, and one of the things we're doing with that is that this group is going to largely revere Kredgefur because they're hunters and this and that. So it just makes a lot of sense that your hunter-gatherer cultures are going to.
Yeah, I mean they probably follow like caribou or something like that, and we're also thinking like they have a little bit of a grudge against the gnomes because
gasp, the little people are against each other.
Yeah. Little people on little people
crime. Yeah, it's a terrible thing.
It's really bad.
Terrible.
But maybe they revered that site
as a holy site.
Yeah, like maybe they call it something different, like Kredgefur's fingers or something along those lines.
Or spears. Kredgefur's spears, because that's how they would relate hunting.
Could be.
That's a good idea.
Yeah. And so at one time maybe there was open warfare between the two, and now there's like an uneasy truce. But you know they don't get along, and really you're living in this truly harsh environment to begin with, so you don't actually need any more problems than you already have.
Yeah.
So they finally came to the conclusion that although they're very angry with these little gnomes for moving in on their holy site, they've just kind of decided to live with it. They're not even going to launch rockets into it or nothing.
Yeah.
Until one of the halfling groups has a vision of gnome
gnomes.
hunting.
Of gnome hunting.
From the blue tiers.
Yeah.
Nice.
That could be a whole adventure.
A
Yeah,
whole
itself.
arc, yeah, but we haven't
mentioned the third faction yet, and you know that we have our Viking.
So one thing about the halflings, I want them to be like either they're gonna like ride wolves or whatever, or they could also be sled dogging, sort of like with huskies and stuff like that. 'Cause that would be cool.
Well, that would work. That's cool.
Yeah.
You
So
could just use the mastiff stats for huskies.
yeah, there you
And
go.
they could use weapons that work well from sled back, like chariot fighting almost. Like so they could use long spears, like lances.
They gotta
and-
use harpoons too.
harpoons, yeah. And you could also have bolas and other things that trip up prey on the hunt. So
Yeah, absolutely.
and they could just ride, they could encircle it with their sled dogs and everything, and kind of like be attacking it and doing all kinds of cool stuff.
Yeah,
I'm just imagining a whole bunch of halflings.
so that's
with their
that
sled
could be
chariots.
an easy way of how the halflings are managing to bring down a yeti.
Yeah, that with fire.
Mobility.
Tactics are very important.
Yeah, absolutely.
So mobility.
Although I could see like the gnomes doing like using like skis and stuff, or crazy gnome inventions.
Yeah.
Rocket skis.
Yeah, that could work.
They could have the snow barge, which is like a ferry, but it's like be like a snowmobile.
Are they on a treadmill to make it work?
I don't know.
They might be.
Enough durables
gnome-
underneath.
It's gnome steampunk magic. I don't know.
Yeah. These crazy
I'm
gnomes.
afraid to look under the hood.
Yeah.
Anything
Yeah.
can jump out.
How many horsepower?
There might be something strange.
Oh
and
no,
unusual,
but there's
or there
a million
might be,
gerbils.
or there might be nothing.
So that brings us to the third faction.
And that's our Viking hobgoblins.
Yes, and the idea is they basically have Viking ships, except for these hobgoblins are a little bit different than our regular Vikings because they've attached skis to their ships and they sail them across the open tundra.
Well, I mean, they could do both. They could raid by land or by sea. But like when the winter comes to the south, it extends their reach. Like they could either attack you from inland or they could come by sea. So, but when they start sledding toward you, it'll be terrifying. These like long ship type of things.
So a really bad winter really opens up their pirate territory.
Right.
Yeah,
The
and they start attacking.
Their Viking pillaging area.
So
And it could be really interesting too if you had a really bad winter where their reach gets extended beyond wherever it's been, and like someone's like, "No, you don't understand. The hobgoblins are going to come on their boats
and you're like
right up to your gates."
It's like we're 70 miles inland. We're not worried about Vikings.
And this is a stream, not a river.
yeah,
I could see one of their tactics being like loading up one of their boats with just like tons of weight and just making a battering ram. Like, so they don't really put anybody in, or they put like one kamikaze guy to steer it, and like they just like a few of those to just
there's a
batter
goblin tied to the wheel.
Yeah, and it's just to like batter down the gates of places. Like they just load this thing down with a shit ton of weight, maybe some explosives, and like ram it into
Well,
full
no,
speed.
you wouldn't actually want explosives, and here's why: because a boat is tall to begin with. If you ram a boat into the side of the wall, or even better, the gates.
The gates, yeah.
One, they can't come in or out of the gates now, right? Even if you can't get in.
And the
But
boat's probably tall enough.
The
that
boat's tall enough where you're almost up
it's a
the
siege
wall.
tower.
Yeah,
Pretty much.
Yeah.
it comes like a siege tower,
Ah.
and then they just can scurry
so
up.
what if they had like the front of the boat? I think it's called the prow. My nautical knowledge is not superb. What if it's got this giant
We're gonna
wedge?
revoke your pirate card now.
If you can't talk like a pirate, yeah.
But if it's got this wedge to be able to hit, but then on this side there's like a ladder.
Oh yeah, absolutely. You'd have like siege equipment on there.
Yeah.
So and then we discussed because normally we just spitfire stuff live on camera, but this one we wound up talking off camera first.
I could even see though on this now we have this like boat siege weapon type of thing, this long ship, and like they made ships that had like ramming heads, so you could that would be a thing. But you could have, so what it would be dragging, right? You'd have this like this beam going across the thing. Would be dragging as a bunch of ladders that when it impacted, they would flip up and like hook. You could have like a rack of like 5 or whatever. So it flips up and it like sort of like grapples into whatever it hits from the impact. And in this way, you can have several guys like scurrying up the side
staircase.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
what if like they actually developed this like kind of like technology, or they stole it from the gnomes, or made a gnome maker for it, where these ladders would actually have a bracing system built into the bottom, so you couldn't just push the ladder over.
Oh, it like locks into place.
No, that's what I'm thinking. Like,
Yeah.
because even in Lord of the Rings, they had these ladders that like they had like hooks.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the hook is common, but you can still dislodge those.
Yeah.
But if you brace something from the bottom,
Yeah.
right, there's nothing,
yeah.
you can't push it off.
Right.
You know, with those, and those are harder, but it would be both like a combination of a hook and a brace
Yeah.
to make it.
So it would be like a hellacious check to be able to like dislodge it or something.
Yeah,
like
you'd
that.
have to be Wolfguard.
You'd have to shatter it. You'd have to just cast shatter on it. That's
But,
the way to fix it.
Yeah, when we were discussing off camera, we talked about the sole reason that the Vikings are raiding was because they had to pay tribute to the Frost Giants.
I don't think it's the sole reason. They're
Okay,
they're Vikings. They want a Viking.
that's
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that they have extra incentive because the Frost Giant Jarls and warlords are like, yo, give it up.
pay us or get squished.
Yeah. So it definitely impacts.
So we've got
It's an incentive program.
Yeah.
So you've got the halflings and the gnomes fighting each other, or at a
uneasy truth.
Angry
Uneasy
glares.
peace.
Angry glares.
Angry glares.
You got the hobgoblin Vikings fighting anybody that will get in their way, and you got the Frost Giants kind of as a backdrop to the whole thing, so you could either encounter them somewhere, or
Well, you
might have
so
to.
so the
I
thing
see them on a different level. That's like we own Kredgefur's belt, and they might even actually call it something different
because
but they don't tell people because they're like, why would you tell a mouse what you call your house?
well, also too, like there's probably not a ton of Frost Giants, because if there were, they would just own the region. Like there's no questions about
But,
it.
and not only that, Frost Giants are really big people, so they require
A lot of
more
resources. Yeah. So like it would be a small clan, and like the hobgoblins might be able to take out the Jarls, the Frost Giants, but at great cost. So it's like both of them are just like like the Giants probably don't see it that way, but the hobgoblins are like, probably with a lot of effort and heavily casualties we could, but it's not worth it.
10% a year is not a big deal compared to
the
massive
problems.
deaths, broken ships.
Maybe like and maybe like an individual warlords like that, and there's like probably several groups with different warlords or chiefs, but maybe there's like a Frost Giant king who is also like a winter wizard or sorcerer and is immensely powerful, beyond just being a Frost Giant.
Yeah.
That kind of is like, okay, like if you they could probably like mess up one of his dukes.
Well,
But if he comes calling, it's going to be bad news.
but how powerful do you make them? Because then it's like, well, I guess nobody should step foot into this region. Like if you make them too powerful, then it's like, well, we have this godlike thing that nobody can fuck with. So like, why would Trinemet still be on the map if this thing is so threatening that it can take?
Why would the
everything out?
Frost Giant Sorcerer King care?
No, I mean
That's what I mean. Like what I mean by the Frost Giant's on a different level. It's not like, okay, I have stats. I'm a Frost Giant and I have character stats or whatever.
Yeah.
Who cares? Like, I don't care about these people. If they come bothering me, I will obliterate them.
Yeah,
And then I'll go back to reading my book or writing my scroll.
He's got what
or
he
whatever
considers.
he wants to do.
He has what he considers his lands, and as long as people don't mess with him, he's fine.
Yeah, it's
right,
it's his
but why
benevolence.
doesn't he enslave the gnomes to make stuff for him, like to make technology? If he
Because he
wanted
doesn't
to.
give it to him.
He doesn't give a damn.
Yeah.
He's got what he considers his, and he's satisfied with
He
that.
might not value technology too, for one, and the other. And they prefer to work through proxies. Like I think of Giants as being kind of lazy anyway, so they'd rather have the hobgoblins do all the work
and reap the spoil.
and reap the spoils. So, but if they had, and the problem is they probably have trouble pulling it together collectively anyway. There's infighting amongst them usually, so that's one of the things that holds them back as well. And I think the hobgoblins kind of ignore Trinemet because it's so heavily
It's very
fortified.
defensive. Yeah, it's very defensive.
So again, the cost is too high.
And their major tactic for fighting and invasion of a fort or a castle doesn't work against Trident.
Yeah, and then the halflings, they're constantly on the move.
They're exposed, but they're really good at hiding. Like they hide in
And they
plain
don't
sight.
have anything.
Yeah,
They don't have treasure.
they don't
Like,
have anything that they want.
they're hunter gatherers, and they generally don't have. It's not worth the trouble because it's like, all right, well, if we need some, if
Or
we
innately
need some
carve polar bears,
slaves,
so
yeah, we'll go
ooh.
harass some halflings, or maybe we'll catch a gnomish party outside. But other than that, it's much easier to attack south because that's where they keep things like
the
gold.
treasure and the weapons caches and this and that.
They keep the gold and the silver that the giants want.
Yeah.
So they're incentivized to actually go down there and try and get it.
And personal honor and other things associated with being the best raider and other
Successful
things like
raider,
that.
yeah.
Well, and
successful
that's
raider.
another thing. Like, it could just be also a long-standing tradition that's been built up around paying homage to these warlords, to the point where it's no longer like just them paying tribute. Like, almost
Who can give the best present is like it's a status symbol.
it's like becomes prestige
Well,
unto themselves.
So we can almost look at these people kind of modeled after
Stockholm
the men.
syndrome.
Well, the Men of Pike. I was thinking from Game of Thrones, like the we do not sow.
Yeah,
like the whole
the
idea,
Iron Price.
the Iron Price. Like so they, the idea of taking things like it's prestige to wear a lot of jewelry that you've taken. Because it's like we didn't make any of this.
And while the Frost Giants don't hold to that same thing because they're expecting tribute, it's also prestige to be able to give away a valuable object to the Frost Giants.
Right.
Yeah, so that's it. Like that, I think that's it. Like, he who gives the best tribute. There's a whole nother Game of Thrones Pike thing that you guys probably haven't even gotten to, but in case people get really angry about spoilers, but I'm not going to go into that. But it does make me think of something from those books, and you guys, you read it, you know what I'm talking about. But we're giving the best gift raises up amongst the Jarl kings of the Vikings or Thanes or whatever they're calling themselves. Who gives the best gift is going to be most favored and looked upon the best.
Do the Frost Giants in Hobgoblin Society, like, do the Frost Giants award titles, distribute titles to the Hobgoblins?
I mean, everyone
Or does
has
that
their
give them
favorite
too
hound.
much? Yeah, or does that give the Frost Giants too much control over Hobgoblin Society? And so,
I'm sure there's some kind of political pecking order.
I think there should probably be like a seasonal situation, like maybe the
you can hold a title for the season.
Basically there's probably multiple groups of hobgoblins, and it's become a thing now that they present at the same time, like they're on the same day. And
There's probably a thing where they sabotage each other, they steal from each other, a lot of backbiting from different clans. Like, I could see going on.
but they could present on a certain day, and Frost Giant Wizard makes a pick of which one presented
is most
the best,
favored. Yeah.
and like he gives them some kind of boon. It could be you get to keep the treasure. It could be some kind of magical ward placed on them. It could be a return of something else, or
maybe
a cool ice axe that's going to someday be a mage forge.
Yeah, or well, I mean, I was going to say
Maybe
that
you get to hold it for a year.
I was going to say that
use it.
maybe this Frost Giant's powerful enough that he could grant like warlock levels to someone for that span, his favor.
Oh yeah, that would be
Like
kinda cool.
maybe it's like you just get 5 levels of warlock for this span of time or whatever, like because he's like that powerful and you're in that close of contact. But maybe it's only while you're within the lands to like certain radius of him.
Well, whatever. It could just be wherever the ice flow goes to. So
Well,
wherever there's ice.
you know what? Maybe there's like the annual meeting, but like there's like a 5-year meeting, or like there's a meeting that happens less often and it's far more rare, and that's where he actually bestows upon someone the pact of being a warlock, and it's just level 1, but it doesn't happen that often. Yeah, I mean, it could happen in other ways.
But and then you
for
have
them-
the weapon version of the warlock because it makes sense for the culture. Like an ice weapon or whatever.
So I think you could definitely do something interesting like that. Or maybe he really does accumulate a warlock a year.
Yeah.
you get raised up in status.
And
I
you
think
could.
the one a year would be too much. Probably once a decade or once every 5 would be better.
Well, no, I mean, because they're not going to live forever.
Well, no, I don't know how long hobgoblins live.
About
They,
60
they could meet a violent end because what they're doing. is violent.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean,
that probably
the
happens
turnover for them is probably quick.
Yeah, so it might not be. Yeah, it's not like you're gonna have 100 warlocks because they're gonna die doing what
Right.
they do.
Yeah.
And like I would say that they're awarded so that maybe they do get the first level and they can they can level it like as any
else?
NPC would.
Maybe he even caps it for a specific reason or arbitrary reason. Like, hey, 9's it.
Yeah.
3 3's done. Or whatever he picks.
Right.
Maybe there's some kind of significance.
You hit level 10, you get the
Well, no, like,
special summons.
a certain number. Well, it could only be
Well,
he only retains a
he
certain
won't
number of
reward.
warlocks.
He won't reward another with a pact until there's 8. So there's incentivization to not have there be 9.
So he can only maintain so many packs as might be the actual reason, but he never says that.
Yeah, he
He only will ever choose 13. He doesn't tell them why.
Yeah.
Oh, I like that. I like
But-
13.
13th warrior, but he he maxes out because he's only able to spread his power so far, but he never says that. He just says only 13 are worthy at any time or something. So
Something
I like that.
enigmatic and
Well, I think he would.
ominous.
Yeah. Oh, I think he would always keep a few in reserve because he could also do warlock pact with other things. I think he'd want to not max
so
out.
you could earn the favor of this maybe even as a PC if you like, if somehow your interest aligns with his. So this could be a pact that your character could earn.
Yeah, that'd be pretty neat.
You're lying face down in the cold tundra. Your life's blood leaks upon the ground when you hear the wind whisper in your ear.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you form the pact with him.
Cute.
That's the way it's pretty much how I envision all warlock packs happening.
Dire straits.
someone's lifeblood is leaking out around them.
Yeah.
I'm like, man, I don't want to die.
wanna
Sure,
die.
deal with the ice devil. I don't mind.
I don't know what you are, voice, but you can keep me from dying. I'm in.
I'll deal with the consequences later when I'm alive.
Yeah.
So that could very well be, if you have PCs.
Yeah, we could
starting
definitely
in that
you
region.
could pick an arbitrary number, right? 3, 6,
13.
7,
13.
And then like you don't have to say like why I don't like defining things like that in my games, because if I do want to throw another one out there for some reason, I can.
Well, but then the mystery is how is this possible? Like it becomes interesting.
Well, that's why
Yeah.
that's why I said 9. It could really be 13 is all he can do, and maybe he has secret ones, but the hobgoblins only know of 9, and that's their check. If you want to have another if you want to be another warlock,
you
well, one's got to
take
go
out-
away.
Yeah.
That's a good.
And then he's got, his extra power to do with what he will.
That's a good idea.
See, I guess like my thing is I don't like setting up like these rule systems and structures that me as the DM is the only one that really knows it.
And then has to follow.
It doesn't really mean anything if
You
no
can
one
have it,
knows
but you can leak it into the game.
well,
Like, there are
you
ways.
can.
I mean, there are ways to explicate information, especially.
I just feel by not explaining it, like you could still do the same thing later on.
True.
Like all I'm saying is if you said, okay, the number is 9, he can only there's only ever 9 chosen, yet you stroll up and you're not a hobgoblin, but you have a pact with this patron that is this Yarrow King. And and so you never said why, and no one, and they're gonna wonder, well, I thought there's only 9. But who knows? Maybe later on it turns out there's only 9 per race. Sorry. That makes for a
Disclaimer.
lot of warlocks.
Yeah. Disclaimer.
Or for some other special reason that you could leak out into the game while you're playing.
Yeah.
And it would be interesting, and it could be a conflict. And how would these warlocks or this hobgoblin society perceive you and receive you? Because your power comes from the same place as theirs. Doesn't matter. They're going to kill you anyway. Whatever. Carrots and celery in the pot with you.
So I was just thinking about an interesting thing. Like you have the remorhaz that can melt its way through the snow. It kind of like swims through the snow.
Mhm.
What if you had like a culture that could domesticate them? Like maybe they create this thing that will like glide across the sidecars off of it almost.
I almost feel like there was a barbarian tribe based around them somewheres loosely in some D&D book somewheres, whether it was a novel or a supplement or something.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of
So-
Or something I made up. I don't even know. At some point, it all blurs together.
I remember I did an Arctic adventure that had the tribe of the worm and the tribe of the white wolf, and the worm I think revered the remorhaz was the thing. But
Could
I
even
don't
be-
I don't
it
even
could
know if
even
it
be
was
that.
I don't even know if that. But I was like interested, like what if like they had a way of training these things up from a young age, and like use them as like basically transport and guard animals. Like a culture that did that. But I don't know if it's been done.
Subterranean Goliaths.
Are
I think the holes will be big enough for a Goliath.
Are remorhaz? Is it that they burrow? Because I just thought they just kind of like swam through like Arctic, like through snow, basically.
I would think if you had a big glacier, you could. Just,
I don't
just
remember. I just know they melt everything around them.
Yeah.
Or
we
the
looked up
whole
remorhaz.
super hot
Yeah.
stuff going on.
Yeah, I just thought that they kind of like glide through snow because they're superheating it, so they have like a
sluice.
They can burrow. They have a burrow speed of 20 feet.
Okay.
Yeah, so maybe they do just melt their way through.
Mm.
Well, being able to melt ice would definitely make burrowing much easier in an Arctic terrain.
It would.
Is what I'm thinking.
Yeah. Although so you're gonna want to keep them above ground because you're gonna get kind of clobbered once they go below. So that would be the one thing.
Well, and I guess the other thing too is like,
Well, it says here in the book, frost giant hunters scour the icy wastes for remorhaz nests and eggs. The giants prize young remorhazes, which can be trained from hatchlings to obey commands and guard icy citadels. Unlike full-grown specimens, young remorhazes gnaw on their victims instead of swallowing them whole. So, they totally can be trained.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
So I don't know if we have a tribe of Goliaths or humans
or something.
that does that sort of uses them. Like they attach these halters to it, and like they're basically pulled on these like sled skiff type of things.
Oh, maybe the gnomes harvest them for something.
Well, the gnomes could rig that the
Like
thing.
I could see them being the ones that make something that will work with it.
Mm.
The remorhaz pulled chariots, war chariots.
Yeah, what I'm imagining is like a sidecar that would go on either side. Like maybe it's maybe they're these like big sort of like Howdow, the siege.
Howdah.
Okay.
I saw the
Wheels.
Jimmy Neutron thing happen.
Yeah.
In Nate's
All
head.
right.
Yeah.
So you've got the remorhaz, you've got the gnomes. They rig up these metal harnesses to have like traveling through tubes with these remorhaz. One of the main reasons why the hobgoblins completely ignore Trinemit is because they make specific breaks in the actual Arctic ice around Trinemit, and the hobgoblins cannot approach it with their ships because
They'll fall
it's
in a hole.
basically like a whole bunch of pit traps that will just crack their ships up,
And then they'll get eaten by remorhazes.
and then they'll be eaten by remorhazes, and the ships will burn,
I hate getting eaten by remorhazes.
and your ship's burning
Yeah.
while your ship's burning.
Yeah,
But
it's the worst.
It's cool
So,
because
That would be a major reason why that occurs, and that you'd also have the remorhaz gnome kind of relationship. Why they train them instead of
Who's a good
because
remorhaz? Who's a good remorhaz?
instead of because I'm just a crazy gnome and I do weird things. Like that's the reason why they.
But I could also see them being like basically an Arctic form of mass transit. Like they can't. It's a lot of resources to train them.
Mhm.
So, but they treat them almost like Arctic trains.
I
You know,
did
like
say
that-
traveling in tubes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you'd hook them up and you'd have some kind of like.
Even the giants would have to respect that. Like you're walking up there to lay the smackdown, and you step into one of these holes, tripping and like falling. Like I can see a giant like one leg is stuck in this hole, and they're like sprawled, with their hands out in front of them, and then all of a sudden, no, not a remorhaz, across a ballista bolt in the face. It becomes maybe they did try it, and
It didn't go so well.
it didn't go so well, and they never tried again.
Yeah, it was so embarrassing that they were just like, "Oh, forget this. They can stay."
Although anytime they see a gnome out in the open, they will kill them because the insult is so grievous.
Yeah.
The idea that All right, so I don't know.
It's like Arctic cockroaches.
All right, so
Gnomes-
we
gnomes
got
to
lots
giants.
of stuff going on here in Kredgefur's belt. Do we cover it?
Yeah, I think we iced this one over pretty good for now.
Crack a cold one.
Yeah. So with that, guys, like, comment, subscribe, share. You know the drill.
You can check us out on nerdarchy.com.
And you may patronize us in a way that we like on Patreon.
You can also join the conversation over on Reddit.
So until next time,
Stay nerdy.